Welcome to Sustainable Success. Hope everyone's having a great week. Again, you found us here at the Voice America Business Channel here on our new platform, Libsyn. We've been excited to be here since January after being on the Voice America platform, still with Voice America, but yet we're using a different platform now to reach even a more wider audience. And we are excited that you're here. If you found us here at Libsyn, or you've been following us here on Apple, Spotify, and now also our YouTube channel as well. And again, we encourage everyone to also follow us on our Facebook page at Sustainable Success 2017. There, we've had many of our great guests share their words of wisdom and insight to help elevate you and your business to the next level. Again, if you would like to see future content on this show that we have not covered, which might be hard to believe because we've covered a lot of content almost in an 8-year period that we've been here, feel free to reach out to our team at chris@sustainablesuccess.net. That's chris@sustainablesuccess.net. Well, our show today is being brought to you today by Alumni Direct. Alumni Direct is a new social media community platform dedicated to bringing alumni together from all different generational types and an opportunity to meet new people for the first time. Now, it is a membership program, taking out all the noise out of social media. No more of those noisy notifications. You get to come in and generate genuine and authentic relationships with the people you choose to interact with, including the content. And it also offers a wide array of different services, both on a personal, professional level, that are not available to the general public. If you'd like some more information about Alumni Direct, check them out at alumnidirect.com. That's alumnidirect.com. Well, we got a great show for you today. We're going to be talking about evolving from faulty happiness and success formulas to harmonizing freedom and responsibility. And this is going to be really an iconic show. And we hope that everybody has both their ears open to listen, take notes, because there's a lot of great information here. We're going to be here with Dr. David Gruder, a good friend. We've known each other for quite some time. He's an award-winning clinical and organizational development psychologist, unveils how we can break free from these constraints and create more harmonious future for ourselves and humanity. As America's integrity expert and the author of multiple best-selling books, Dr. Gruder shares his mission to empower leaders and businesses to thrive while balancing self-sovereignty, ethical practices, and societal wellness. And without further ado, we welcome Dr. David Gruder to the show. David, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Christopher. It's great to be back with you.
Absolutely. Such a pleasure to be here. And, David, we always love to start this show, with around the topic, a little bit of a background about you and how you evolved into doing what you're doing today with this topic. And I know you've done so many great things over the years as an organizational psychologist and, an expert in this area. But a little backstory always sets the foundation for all the great things you're going to share with us today.
Oh, well, thank you. My background is I'm a child of the 1960s, the 50s and 60s. And a couple of really important things happened to me all the way back then that I didn't have a way of knowing were going to set the trajectory of my entire adult life. The first of those was in 1964 and 1965. I grew up in the New York area and went to the New York World's Fair a number of times. Well, I couldn't have known it at the time because I was respectively 10 and 11 years old during those years. But in hindsight, I realized that it was by attending the New York World's Fair that I actually became a futurist. And
And wasn't 1964 the year, I believe, maybe I'm wrong, that was that futurist concept they introduced at that fair, wasn't it? Where I could be
yeah,
wrong. Yeah,
yes, yeah.
yeah.
And so it impacted me. It really reached me in a very deep level. So when the original Star Trek television series started airing in 1966, I was an instant devotee, an instant fan, because they were showing me a version of the future that had a lot of things that I really resonated with. And then I was impacted even more deeply when I was 15 years old in 1969, when my my parents sent me to Woodstock. They didn't know that that's what they were sending me to. It was a special trip sponsored by a Camp for the Performing Arts that I was attending in the summertime. And then in my undergraduate years, in the first half of the 1970s, I took a history course called History of the Future. And we were trained in how to be futurists and how to do future projection. So that's some of my backstory that connects to what we're going to be talking about today.
Wow, I love it. Thank you for sharing that here, and so important. So let's talk a little bit about, I guess, some of these, I don't know if it's out of default or just, again, these formulas that people operate from each and every day that are, again, maybe interfering with our happiness, our joy, our, the version of success that we're striving for.
Sure. Well, what I have seen as uh, some people refer to me as a societal psychotherapist, as as an observer of the dynamics in our society, is that there are five myths, five distorted beliefs that have been gradually tearing down our society more and more. And they're faulty formulas. There's a faulty happiness formula, a faulty health formula, a faulty prosperity formula, a faulty patriotism formula, and a faulty problem solving formula.
Wow. If you don't mind, and it's up to you, we'd love to hear about each and every one of those buckets that you just shared and with those formulas, what we've been led to believe, and what we can do to reprogram them.
You bet. Well, let's start with the happiness formula. So, there was a version of the happiness formula that was installed in the 1950s. It was called the American Dream. And um, the the origin of the 1950s version of the American Dream, can I give a little backstory on that?
Please do.
Uh, so at the end of World War II, Franklin Delano Roosevelt had died, Harry Truman was president, and Truman had two big concerns. One was that he saw that the United States and the world, or at least part of the world, had recovered from the Great Depression through a wartime economy. And he wanted our economy to continue to grow in peacetime, in rather than becoming dependent on continuous war to grow. He didn't succeed very well, but he had that he had that intention. Not just he, but his successors also didn't succeed very well with that. But he wanted the economy to keep growing in peacetime, and he wanted to do whatever was conceivable to do to help ensure that the United States didn't fall prey to the propaganda and hijacking that happened in Nazi Germany. And the
Mm.
reason he was concerned about that was that the propaganda campaigns that were used by the Nazis were modeled after an American's published works.
Wow.
And that American's published works was Edward Bernays, and that his writing is available to this day. He's known as the father of modern public relations. He had a deep understanding of how the unconscious mind worked on a societal level because he drew from his uncle's understanding of the unconscious mind. Bernays's uncle was Sigmund Freud.
Oh, jeez. Oh, that would sell it all right there.
Right. So Bernays was a darling of politics and industry from Woodrow Wilson at the end of World War I, all the
Mm.
way through when Bernays died in the first half of the 1990s during Bill Clinton's first term in office. And so he went to Bernays and he went to business people and politicians and said to them, give me a plan for minimizing the chances that Nazi Germany could happen here and maximizing the economy growing in a peacetime kind of way. What they came up with was what they called the American dream. And the 1950s American dream, which has nothing to do with the original American dream, was all about redefining happiness
Mm.
as excessive consumption. Now, there's nothing wrong with, having thin things and having wealth and all of those things. That's not where the problem lies. But when happiness got redefined as excessive consumption, everything started to fall apart.
Yes. That's so true. And I love the fact that you gave this backstory because I mean, some people probably, might are in our generation may be aware of it, but there are a lot of people that are not, and they're, and that really sets the stage. Please continue because I mean, this is just so enlightening.
Right. Well, interestingly, the the sustainable formula for happiness is the one that got booted out in the 1950s with that version of the American dream. The original American dream that birthed the United States was the pursuit of happiness, and it had two active ingredients. One was individual freedom, personal freedom, and the other was the common good,
Yeah.
social responsibility. And so the original American dream was that we can be individually and collectively happy by harmonizing personal freedom, or what I refer to as self sovereignty,
Yes.
and the common good, which I refer to as collective or societal well being. So that was the original happiness formula, and it got replaced with this 1950s version of the American dream. We're in end stage deterioration from the fallout from that distorted version of the American dream, which caused excessive, massive consumer debt, living beyond our means, perverted capitalism from what capitalism's potential, higher potential could be, into a completely different economic system that still gets called capitalism, but it isn't. It's actually debtism, which is borrowing
So
against an
true.
uncertain, sorry?
So true. Absolutely.
And so I'll define debtism. It's borrowing against an uncertain future in order to prop up the illusion of a lifestyle today.
Yeah.
Well,
And
that's what
and would that be the mortgage and the college education and all that, that type of thing with the debt people go into, with, over, taking a loan on a house bigger than they should have. I mean, did they have to have all like 5 bedrooms or could they just add 3 bedrooms, that type of thing?
right. And you and I know that there is such a thing as good debt.
Yes. Oh
Right?
yeah.
But what you're now illustrating is bad debt. It's bad use of good debt. So
Yes.
good debt could be a mortgage, but not if the mortgage is more expensive to pay off than the means are to do that.
Absolutely. Unless that debt is making money, like if it were like you had a real estate asset that you were renting something and it was making you money.
Right. So you've turned debt into an income producer. That's
Yes.
good debt. So we're talking about false debt, and I'll come back to that in the
Yes.
hijacking of prosperity section. Um, because all of these five areas that I've gotten hijacked are interconnected. But the happiness formula has to be reclaimed in order for us to get back on track as a nation and in order for us to get back on track as individuals.
Mm. So powerful. I mean, so true. I love what you just shared, and and how that is just impacted. And I could see how in the '60s and then the '70s when it was just like, free love, and it wasn't just now free love; it became excessive. And then the '80s with all materialism and the excess with cocaine and all the everything else that went along with it, and then how it just kept evolving into where we are today.
Well, absolutely. And there is actually unspoken wisdom underneath that cliche from the 1960s.
Yeah.
The the cliche was sex, drugs, and rock and roll,
Yeah.
right? And underneath the sex part was that we were looking for a deeper way to be bonded and intimate with each other than just the expectation of a marriage contract. And
Yes.
the drugs part was that we were looking for ways to be more authentic people in contrast to the conformity that was installed in the 1950s. And the rock and roll part was that for the first time in the history of music, lyrics were appearing in songs that were telling us that we actually had the power to create a better world.
Yeah.
Well, our generation dropped the ball. We didn't see the forest for the trees. We bought the cliche of sex, drugs, and rock and roll and never really grasped or became committed to the wisdom of authenticity, connection, and impact, which are our three core drives and the real key to sustainable happiness.
Wow. Oh, so powerful. And so when you talk about that, and feel free to elaborate in any other areas that you would like to talk where you feel that has played a role, whether if it's in business or the family union, anything else. But where I would love to go after you, if you want to talk about that, is because of that, how can we would love to hear how we can break those cliches, those patterns that we've been reprogrammed, or some people have been programmed since day one. If they grew up like myself, when I was born in 1967, I was a 70s, 80s, and 90s. That's the era that I was a young a child and a young adult.
Yeah. Well, what I'll say in the time we have remaining in this segment
Yeah,
is that those three core drives I just mentioned, authenticity, connection, and impact, are the key, are the key to sustainable happiness. We all have a drive to be who we truly are. That's authenticity. We all have a drive to bond with others. That's connection. And we all have a drive to influence the world around us. That's impact. Sustainably happy people are strong in all three of those
yeah.
areas, not just one or two of them.
Yeah, so true. Love it. Love it. And we could definitely go into more of that here in the second segment. But with the time we have remaining, anything that you would like to either elaborate what you've shared already in this first segment or to summarize anything, some of the key points that you had covered here in segment one?
Sure. I want to encourage everyone to look at what they have unintentionally bought into in the way of faulty happiness formulas, because happiness is not excessive wealth, it's not excessive power. There's nothing wrong with power or wealth, but that's not what happiness is. It's authenticity, connection, and impact. It's personal freedom and the common good.
Wow, it's so true. When I kind of like, when I can remember back, because I learned from my father, because my father, when I was growing up, my father was usually never around, and I was always seeking his validation. And then the one thing that I learned, which didn't help me, was my father grew up poor. So when he became an adult, it was his mission to make money. So he did everything he could to make money, start a business, which he did successfully. But the very thing that my father longed for, which he ended up getting, ended up killing him because he died at the age of 56 from lung cancer. And it was just all that manifestation of all those limiting beliefs and this faulty sense of happiness that happened. And that changed my life to kind of see things because that's the path that I was going down. And thank God I've went to the direction that you just mentioned and what you're going to share more of in the second segment. We got more to come here. We're going to be talking more, if you're just joining us here, more about evolving from faulty happiness success formulas to harmonizing freedom and responsibility with Dr. David Gruder. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back to Sustainable Success. If you're just joining us here, we're talking about evolving from faulty happiness and success formulas to harmonizing freedom and responsibility. We're here with Dr. David Gruder. Again, we highly encourage you, if you're just joining in, to listen to this show in its entirety here later today. And, check out segment one. This is, I'm telling you right now, the background, the foundation, everything that might be going on in your life and in your business, and how you can look at things differently. And you do have the power within you to change it if you're truly seeking a better way of forging happiness and success in a more sustainable way. Dr. David, you talked about, there were several buckets that we've been, led to believe was the source of happiness and success, and how it's changed, and how it changed right after World War II when Harry Truman was in office. I know there's some other buckets that you want to talk about where this is all also have been happening, and it still happens to this day going forward, is in the areas of health and prosperity, amongst other areas that you're more than welcome to share.
Well, thanks. Well, let's continue the narrative then, building on the faulty happiness formula, the 1950s version of the American dream. What the workforce needed to do in order to conform to that overconsumption equals happiness script is to work longer and longer hours in a job they weren't thrilled about in order to climb the corporate ladder in a company they weren't necessarily thrilled with the values of. And that led to more and more chronic stress because they would come home exhausted, and the people in their family that simply wanted to love on them and be loved by them, they were too exhausted to really participate fully. And what ended up happening was that health started eroding in new ways. And the faulty happiness formula accelerated that because in the 1950s was the beginning of when all kinds of toxic ingredients started to be introduced into foods in order to make them more easily consumable, easily buyable, easily preparable, all of those kinds of things. And so what ended up happening to health was that we lost track of what high level health was. And there are two industries who saw huge profit opportunities in this whole scenario I was just describing. I refer to those two industries as the illness creation industry and the symptom control
Oh
industry.
yes, please share. I am all ears on this one.
So the illness creation industry are the businesses and the industry sectors that were manufacturing things that were health harmful. So toxic environmental poisons and toxic things that were mislabeled as foods. And so the combination of environmental toxins and poisonous supposed foods, alleged foods, combined over time to deteriorate people's health. And what we saw was a drastic increase over time in chronic illnesses and obesity and cancer and all of these different types of deteriorating disease processes. And so what that then did was that it caused the slice of the pharmaceutical industry that is only concerned with profits. And I'm wording it that way on purpose because there are ethical people in the food industry and ethical people in the pharmaceutical industry. But the slices of the pharmaceutical industry that were all about profits no matter what, they saw an opportunity to control the symptoms that were being
Oh
created
yes.
by the chronic illnesses that the illness creation industry was creating.
Yeah, it was
And
the it
so
was the environment and the food that created it, and now let's just manage the symptoms.
precisely. And so that unholy alliance that emerged between the symptom control industry feeding off of the illness creation industry has completely hijacked our health because people now think of health as managing their symptoms rather than high level thrival.
Mm. Wow. Wow, it's so powerful. If you, it is so true what you just shared, and I hope everybody listening, let that absorb in. Let that absorb. You don't have, you can see it from your perspective, but just think about the realities of what we, what way our food industry is today, and again, people were, just always managing, the problem, managing symptoms, and not getting to the root cause of things. That's an inside job which I'm sure that Dr. David is going to talk about here soon. David, is there any other things you want to share about unpacking some of these other areas, or would you like to, discuss some of the things that we could start individually and then hopefully together that we could start to change that narrative?
Right. Well, I think with your agreement, what I'd like to do is to say a little bit about the remedy to the hijacking of health and
Please
then to
do.
move on to the next hijacking area.
Absolutely. 100%.
So the remedy to the hijacking of health is to clean up our act in terms of our well-being, to really redefine what health is and to allow that redefinition of health as thriving rather than symptom control inform our different choosing around the things that we take into our body. So in order to eat healthy, we at the very least we need to eat organic because the poisons that are put into foods that should otherwise be healthy foods, like let's just say glyphosate, for example,
Mm.
which is a common toxin in fertilizers and built into seeds these
Oh,
days
yes.
that are creating frankenfoods. They're creating foods that actually make us sick. So invest in the extra time it takes to cook in a healthy way. Invest in foods that are not laced with poisons.
Yes.
That would be a great start. Exercising, getting enough sleep. I mean, we have a chronic epidemic of sleep deprivation in our
Yes.
society where people are allowing themselves to try to function on 7, 6, 5, 4 hours a day of sleep. And that's a prescription for chronic illness, as well as impaired cognitive functioning and impaired capacity to love and be heartful and everything else.
No, it's so, so true. I exactly what you shared. And you think about, prior to even the World War II, way back, even going way back, that there were farms galore. Everywhere you went, there would be a farm, and it was farm to table. And then you just saw after that time frame less and less and less of that. Everything is just it's all been, like you said, it's been businessized, so to speak, and it's not the same. It's not, or has not been the same.
And that's why we've seen a growth of farmers markets in communities.
Yes.
Buy from your local farmers markets.
Yeah.
Right? So that, I mean, obviously, with all of these topics, we can spend long periods of time deeper diving into any of them. But is that enough about the remedy
No,
to the
absolutely. I
hijacking of
think you've
health for
set
now?
you really painted a picture of this, this illusion, or this, what we thought, what we've been led to believe. And, again, happiness and success is a choice. It comes from within. We have the power to choose that. So I love if you could now, share some of the things that we can start doing individually and, together, whether it's a community, a family, a business, whatever that may be, how we can start to reprogram that differently to really set better formulas for happiness and success.
Right. And in order to do that, I have to unpack the other three buckets
Please do
out of the
unpack those
five.
three buckets.
Because there's an old saying in my home field, which is healthcare, psychology, integrative well-being, things like that. which is treatment without diagnosis is malpractice. So
Exactly.
we're diagnosing the problem here.
Got
So
to get to the root cause of the problem before we can get to the solution.
that's right. And that's the whole point is work with physicians. A last piece on the hijacking of health. Work with physicians who are integrative physicians. And an integrative physician is someone who doesn't throw out the gold and the wonderful qualities in conventional medicine, but they add in everything that conventional medicine leaves out because conventional medicine is great with symptom control. It's great with dealing with emergencies, crises, surgeries, things along those lines. If I had an acute condition or a medical emergency, I want Western medicine. But with high level wellness, we need what Western medicine isn't designed to provide. Okay,
Mm,
next bucket, hijacking of prosperity.
mm.
I already planted some seeds around this
Yes, you have.
in the earlier segment, but and in this segment as well. The whole notion of capitalism has gotten completely perverted. What capitalism is intended to be is where you have something that's of value to me that is valuable enough so that it is ethical and proper for me to devote a portion of my life energy that I've converted into money through what I do for a living to acquire that. And when we have agreement between what you offer for the price you offer it and what I want at the price I want it, we have a collaborative agreement to do something with each other. Well, that is the essence of prosperity. That's the essence of capitalism. But what capitalism has been perverted into is sociopathic capitalism,
Mm.
like the unholy alliance between the illness creation and
Oh,
symptom
yeah.
control industries. That's a poster child example of sociopathic capitalism. And when we think that's what capitalism is, and when we think that capitalism is debtism, as I described it earlier, borrowing against an uncertain future in order to prop up an illusion of a lifestyle in the present. When we think that those two things are capitalism, we should hate capitalism.
Yeah.
But it's not what capitalism is. So prosperity is about enoughness. It's not about excessive wealth. Prosperity is about hopefully making enough money not only to pay our bills and take care of ourselves and our loved ones and have some enjoyable things, but to hopefully have some extra money that we can channel into paying it forward and making a better world.
Absolutely.
Right? Well, that's what healthy capitalism is supposed to be. That's what the healthy prosperity formula is.
I love that. And it's so true. And it also what I got from what you shared, it inspires people to show up to be their best, but not the best. We are so conditioned that we have to be the best at everything, and that puts so much stress and anxiety, and thus what leads us to gravitating to these things that to escape it, and that really is the downward spiral with our overall well-being because of it.
Right. Prosperity is not dysfunctional debt.
Mhm. That's true. Please go into that a little bit more, unpack that, because I think that would be so important to this audience.
By the end of the 1950s, the early 1960s, consumer debt had gone from next to nothing to out of control, where people were buying more than they could afford to pay for. And it was the invention of credit cards and the wide adoption of credit card usage that promoted the hijacking of prosperity through excessive debting. When we look at the national debt, the amount of our national debt now, and the amount of consumer debt, it's out the roof. It is utterly unsustainable.
Yeah. It is so true. I mean, just look at it. So many people. with their homes, cars, education. It could be so many other different things. I mean, it just people are living on borrowed time, and it's like a house of cards, and that to me is not prosperity. That is not feeling in harmony with my well-being, and definitely not the definition of prosperity.
And all of this has actually infected and distorted the next piece that we'll unpack more in the next segment, but we may touch on briefly now, which is the hijacking of patriotism.
Oh
We
yeah.
think we're being patriotic when we're over buying, when we're over consuming, because that's what we were taught was part of patriotism in the 1950s with the 1950s
Yes.
delusion of the American dream, which has turned into an American nightmare. So the whole notion of patriotism has gotten distorted, also around patriotism being defined as loyalty to a particular individual or a particular political party rather than loyalty to the Constitution of the United States, for example.
That is so true. And think about that. I mean, even if somebody is loyal to a brand for whatever reason, I mean, think about what those businesses done. They because things got expensive here, everything is made overseas. And because it's about doing it for less to still charge higher prices, make higher profits. And yet sometimes well, in this case many times the quality or the longevity of that product isn't there. I can remember back when I was a kid, those old GE dishwashers or washer and dryers, they would last like 2 or 3 times the amount of what these new ones are today. They don't last.
Yeah, it was called built-in obsolescence.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in fact, Whirlpool had a an ad campaign back in the day, and the ad campaign was uh, about quality being a dying breed.
Yeah. I can attest to that. We definitely over the last 20, 30 years have just conformed to mediocrity, that we accept it. Even service. We just accept, we overpay for a service that's just not to that level we should be paying. Welcome back to Sustainable Success. We're talking about evolving from faulty happiness and success formulas to harmonizing freedom and responsibility with Dr. David Gruder. Again, if you're just joining us, powerful information, narratives that we've been led to believe that lead to success and happiness have eluded us because of these things that we've been obviously been taught to think that was the case. But he is, clearly unpacking, the root cause to these things that are clearly not working, and also sharing what we can be doing individually and together to create more sustainable happiness and success in our lives by changing that narrative. Again, our show is being brought to you today by Alumni Direct. Alumni Direct is a new social media community platform dedicated to bringing alumni together from all different generational types and a chance to meet new people. Now, it doesn't have to be your alma mater. It could be a fraternity, a sorority. And even now, if you're a professional athlete transitioning into everyday life, they have a new Athletes to Entrepreneur Corner, even with a podcast to go along with it, helping you professional athletes to now connect with other athletes doing the same thing to make that transition seamless. Again, if you'd like some more information about Alumni Direct, check them out at alumnidirect.com. That's alumnidirect.com. So, Dr. Gruder, I know you were going to go more into length about the patriotic bucket that we were talking about towards the end of the segment too, and I know you have another area in problem solving that you're going to share with us in this segment.
Yes, and it's very related to politics as well, or patriotism. So, just to continue and double back to or tie together what I'm about to say about patriotism with what I said earlier about happiness. Patriotism is really about combining the core values of our country, which are personal freedom and the common good, together. It's about harmonizing both of those things. A true patriot insists on that harmony, doesn't insist that personal freedom is more important than the common good, or that the common good is more important than personal freedom. A true patriot insists on both and on the harmony between the two. And what we've had is this. Well, let me just shorthand it this way. My term for that combination is free responsibility. There is no
Mm,
word in the English language that combines personal freedom and the common good or social responsibility. So, in the integrity book that I wrote a long time ago that received 6 book awards, I coined the term free responsibility. It's that harmony of freedom and
I love it.
responsibility.
Love
To
it.
me, that's the heart of patriotism. On top of that, we have egotistical self-centeredness masquerading as patriotism. So people think that their group is more important than the larger groups that we're part of, or their country is more important than the larger family of humanity that we're a part of, or the planet's well-being. Well, what I would suggest is that patriotism is upside down. It needs to be reinverted again, where we are all part of a mystery that's way larger than humanity and
Hmm.
way larger than our planet. You know, that we're part of something massively, mysteriously, magically wonderful. And our first loyalty is to that. And our loyalty inside of that, if you think about it as a funnel, our loyalty is to the well-being of our planet and the sustainability of humanity. And our loyalty inside of that is to the well-being of our country. And the well-being inside of that, the patriotism inside of that, is to the well-being of our geographical area, our region, our state, our province, our communities, and our businesses, and inside of that, our loyalty to our family and our loyalty to ourselves. That's vertical integrity, where you've got nested loyalty. I think about it as Ukrainian nested dolls that you might have seen, where you've
Yeah.
got the same ceramic figure or plaster of Paris figure, it looks the same, but there's a large one. You open up the large one, and there's the same figure in a smaller size inside of that. You open up that one, and there's the same figure in a smaller size
Smaller than that.
inside of that. That is nested patriotism. That is the replacement for dysfunctional loyalty.
Wow. Love it. Love it. Love it. I mean, what you're sharing. So, anything you want to elaborate on patriotism, please do. And if you'd like to talk about, I know you're still going to be talking about problem solving as well.
I am. So that's how I'm going to elaborate on patriotism is to talk about that fifth bucket. There are basically three forms of problem solving, three approaches to problem solving. There's coercion, where I get you to do what I want you to do. And if I'm really sophisticated about it, I get you to do what I want you to do, and I get you to be happy to do it,
Exactly.
no matter what the cost to you.
Yes.
So that's coercion. The second form of problem solving is compromise. And the problem with compromise is that the best outcome attainable with compromise is you give up the same amount of what you want as what I give up in what I want. So we both walk away from the problem solving or the negotiating table feeling equally ripped off.
Yeah.
There's nothing healthy about compromise except as a backup plan if the real approach to problem solving proves unworkable because you have unwilling parties involved.
Yes. Yes.
And the real approach to problem solving is collaboration. It's synergy. It's where we combine your deepest concerns and highest intentions with my deepest concerns and highest intentions and insist on developing a solution that takes into account both your deepest concerns and my deepest concerns and your highest intentions and my highest intentions. Well, think about the political system right now. Does the political system do that? Not a chance.
Not at
No
all.
way at all is that happening. They've even given up compromise, which was an inferior problem solving strategy to begin with. And
Yeah.
they're doing coercion now.
Yeah.
So patriotism has gotten confused with coercion.
Yeah.
My special interests are more important than yours. And if you don't believe as I believe, if you don't want what I want, then you're unpatriotic. That's insanity.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the thing that the way I'll tie all of these things together is that imagine this. Imagine that political parties and candidates had a political platform that revolved around restoring these five areas, restoring healthy happiness, restoring health, restoring healthy prosperity, restoring healthy patriotism, restoring healthy problem solving. Imagine politicians and political parties building their platforms around the restoration in these five areas. How would that be?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would be all for that. And I know, obviously that would be a threat to some of the other people that are bought into coercion and, giving the illusion that we have prosperity, like you said, when in actuality it's creating more wealth for them. And really, is it really prosperity for them too? Who knows?
No.
Probably not. But,
And it's not happiness for them either.
no, it
They
isn't.
think their happiness is an excess of wealth and power, and they're
Exactly.
wrong.
Exactly. Exactly. Because it's never good enough. And
No.
I knew that from my father. My father grew up poor. When he finally got money, it was still never good enough. He never filled that hole, and he thought money would do it, and it didn't do what he thought it would do.
During the psychotherapy chapter in my career, where there was enough time amidst all of the keynotes and training and business consulting and all of that stuff that I've always done and writing books and things like that, I originally had some time to also provide psychotherapy because my doctorate's in both clinical and organizational development psychology. And I was getting during the 1990s in particular, before I stopped providing psychotherapy, I was getting people who, to shorthand it and oversimplified it, had accumulated more money than God and more power than God. and had come to me totally confused because they were doing the right thing, but their spouse had left them, their kids had stopped talk to them, and their health had gone to he double hockey sticks in a handbasket.
Oh yeah.
Right. And they were confused. They didn't know what they had done wrong because they thought they were following the American dream.
Yes. So true. So true. And, you know, and if you could use this time, David, to just, share, within our control, because we can only control a lot. I mean us, we can only control ourselves. We can't control other people. But if it starts with you, like what we can do now to start changing that narrative, that we could start today. I know it doesn't happen overnight, but we can start moving forward towards a better way of happiness and success.
So my soundbite for that is wake up, wise up, step up. So the wake up part is wake up to the spells that we have collectively been under. Don't blame yourself for having bought into them. You came by them. We all came by them,
Yes. Oh
honestly.
yeah.
So that's not about blame or shame or guilt or any of that stuff, but just wake up to the fact that your happiness, health, prosperity, patriotism, and problem solving have been hijacked. That's the wake up. Wise up is replace those faulty formulas with healthy versions of happiness, health, prosperity, patriotism, and problem solving. And the step up is in doing that, have positive influence on the people around you in inspiring them to wake up and wise up too.
Wow. Just powerful stuff. And I know what I want to do is we have a couple minutes, less than a couple minutes that I want you, anything else you want to elaborate on what you just shared. And, even if it's like that first step, with what you explained, would you recommend? Everybody's going to be different, but overall, what would be that first step? They could start moving the needle forward in a way that's different to start getting a taste of that freedom, that true freedom, not this freedom that we've been led to believe was freedom.
I would recommend as a first step daring to envision the future you really want for humanity, for yourself, for your nation, the future you really want. Dare to step into visioning a better future.
Mm,
That's a first step.
yeah. So everybody listening, take note of that. Let that sink in. Let that resonate with you because you have the power within you to do the things that will bring you joy. Again, you gotta visualize it and you gotta create it. But it all starts with what Dr. Gruder mentioned and how we can visualize it. And it starts within each and every one of us right up here, to start manifesting that. Oh, wow. Powerful stuff that you've just shared with us here.
And then the other thing I'll add is dare to make a priority of staying connected with whatever your version of higher love and wisdom is, rather than functioning from your ego.
Yeah. Oh, powerful. I know, Dr. David, we got to have you back on the show for round two to talk about this. And I can also, I don't never like to assume and speculate, but I can pretty much count on our audience would like you to come back and be on the show. I want to first, before we let people know how to find you, I want to thank you personally taking time out of your busy day to be with us here at the Sustainable Success Show. For me personally, also for the rest of the team here at Voice America Business Channel and the Sustainable Success team. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
And we want to leave this time for you to let the audience know how can they get in contact with you? What are you up to going forward from here? And anything you'd like to share or provide the audience.
Sure. Well, what I am up to is offering a viable vision of a healthier future and helping equip people to step into embodying it and facilitating it. So I have a free document that I'd like to have people get their hands on uh, about envisioning a better future for all of us. And the way to access it is drgruder.com. That's drgruder.com/best future, all smushed together like one word. drgruder.com/best future. And that will open up the door for you. My main programs these days are one is called impactful resilience, because we've got to help each other become more resilient and more positively impactful. Those two things have to be wedded together again. And for leaders, transcendent leadership. I have a program on that as well. But start with Best Future.
Wow. Absolutely. And again, and we want to encourage everyone, take advantage of that. Go and get that download. Reach out to Dr. Gruder on his website as well. And also social media, because I know you can find, I know David, it's easy to find on social media as well. Connect with him on LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever that may be, wherever spend most of your time. Really great information. And, reach out to him. And also for you organizations out there, regardless of size, this is paramount in helping to develop more unity and teamwork to help, raise the bar in terms of quality and production in your team, whatever that may be with the products and services you provide. Make sure Dr. Gruder could reach out to him. He could be a big part in helping to streamline that for you as well. So thank you again, Dr. Gruder, for being here.
Oh, thank you so much. And again, if you want to be in touch with me, just go to drgruder.com. And there are all kinds of ways to be in touch with me there.
Thank you so much. And listeners, we want to thank you each and every week joining us here at Sustainable Success, again, on the Lipson platform, as we're new here since January. Again, we are committed each and every week in bringing subject matter experts like Dr. David in to share their words of wisdom, personal insights to help elevate you and your business, wherever it is at, to the next level. And we are committed to always, to discussing cutting edge content that's going to help not only you, but also society and the world as a whole. Till then, everybody, have a great rest of your week.